Hey everybody, sorry about that. So when I was recording, I didn't realize that I didn't have audio. As a broadcast major, I kind of just trusted my equipment. So, without further ado, the history of crocheting. Hi guys, so today I'm going to be talking about the history of crocheting. Crocheting is actually the art of creating fabric from yarn or thread using a crocheting hook. So, in the early 1700s, after spreading through Turkey, Saudi Arabia, India, Persia, and North Africa, so they had this thing called tambouring. Tambouring is used more for embroidering, so you've seen like the big wooden circle and people like sew through that. They actually use that, but eventually they learned how to make timbre without using like the big wooden stencil, and they actually started calling that like crocheting in the air. In early 1800s they actually called the same design shepherd's knitting. So the difference though, they started making different fabrics using big hooks the size of a shepherd's staff. In 1800s, they started calling this art crochet. So it's a French word meaning hook, which I'm sure by looking at these, there's a valid reason why, right? In 1845 to 1850, during the potato famine, they actually started calling it the Irish crocheting style. The difference though between like the normal crocheting and this crocheting is that the Irish actually use more delicate yarns and wools, so it became things like lace. In late 1800s, because of the Irish famine, the Irish potato famine, they started traveling abroad, started giving it to other generations, other traditions, making it throughout their time. It slowly became an American tradition. In 1920, people began seeing crocheting as a way to make clothing and accessories. So that's where you get like the headbands, like from the Roaring Twenties, or like chokers. It actually started from crocheting. It started from yarn. It wasn't super decorative. It was just to make a statement, you know. In the 1940s, they started using crocheting to like past wartime actually. So like women primarily were doing that, patiently waiting to like de-stress and everything while their husbands were at war. In 1960, crocheting slowly started becoming more of a houseware ideology. So you started seeing it more on drapery, pillows, in blankets, and that's where you get your classic granny square. So it's kind of like a checkerboard look. This one's really, really easy. It's really fun to make. It's probably one of my favorites. Today, crocheting is actually, it's just as common as knitting. So knitting, it's like the two needles and you'll have a lot of different like stitches, right? You go through each side. Whereas in crocheting, you do one individual stitch at a time using the one hook and of course your fingers. All right guys, that's all. So this was the history of crocheting.